Hi, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Women Like Me. I'm Julie Fairhurst, and I am here today with Leanne Giavedoni, who wrote in Women Like Me, Breaking Through the Silence. So this was book number 4 that Leanne wrote in, and her title, she's in chapter 11. So once you get to know Leanne, it's kind of interesting that her chapter ended up being number 11. And her story, the title is From Scarcity to Simply Splendid. And her subtitle is A Story of Transforming Struggle to Manifest a Life of Abundance and Grace. I love that, abundance and grace. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Leanne from her bio in the book, and then we'll jump right in. So during her long career as a physiotherapist, wellness coach, and educator, Leanne found herself increasingly fascinated with how to overcome struggles, find healing, and experience success. Leanne has dedicated over 2 decades to coaching people to connect within so that they can create better emotional and physical well-being. Leanne is the author of Fear Unraveled and founder of Unleashed Essentials. At Unleashed Essentials, we share an integrative model of health and wellness that bridges tradition with alternative approaches. We help you create better health, prosperity, and peace using a mind, body, spirit approach that bridges the gap that is apparent in traditional approaches to health and wellness. And when she isn't sharing her passion, Leanne's communicating with nature, she's planning her next trip, or relaxing with her high school sweetheart, her son and her daughter in their rural home near Hamilton, Ontario in Canada. So welcome, Leanne. Yay! I'm so happy that you were willing to come on and do this and talk to everybody about your story, because you've got quite an interesting story.
Thank you, Julie. I still can't get over the fact that you do this for all of us with your community, and very, very grateful that I had the opportunity to be in the book and now sharing this conversation with you. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so let's dig in. So why did you want to write? What was it about your story, or what did you wanted to share? What was your reasoning?
Yeah. So it's interesting. First of all, it was an opportunity, right? So when an opportunity arises, if I don't have a reason for not doing it, which in this case, there was absolutely no reason not to do it. Then I need to delve into, so for what reason would I do it?
Okay.
And at the time, if you would have asked me why I was doing it at the time, and then you're asking me today, I have a slightly different answer. So at the time, it was because I thought that I could somehow inspire or help someone else, right?
Yeah.
But in retrospect, when I look at it, because I look at all the things I could have shared in that story, right? Because we have a certain amount of space that we can write in, and the angle that I took and what I did share lets me see today that I needed to hear that I actually was at the point in my life where I was succeeding. So I think I wrote at the time so that I could really experience and articulate and express for myself that all that struggle and all that that I went through was worth it, and that I was on the other side of it. So that's what I reflected on when I knew you were going to ask me that question. I'm like, am I going to ask me why I wrote it? And I was reflecting on it. I'm like, I think that's why I really wrote it. I needed to hear that I had achieved it.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. And it's interesting how at the time you're thinking of doing it for a certain reason, and then once it's done, then all of a sudden you're enlightened, and it's like, wait a minute, this is why I did it. That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And of course, just to say though, Julie, of course it did still, I hope, have, inspiration and a sense of hope to someone else when they were reading it. So that reason is still underlying it.
Yes.
But the other reason is also with it.
Well, for sure. And I think that, number one, we should be doing it for ourselves. And the payoff for that is that we know we're going to be able to help people when they read it. And so I think that it's always important to take care of ourselves first, and then, but to know that it's going to help others is wonderful. And I know lots of people are helped, and I'm sure people have been helped by your fabulous story. So, yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay. So I absolutely love the very first sentence of your story. I absolutely love it, where you say, even if I was the president of the United States, it still wouldn't feel like enough. So do you want to just elaborate on that a bit?
You know, that is such a powerful image in my mind. I can remember to this day in so much detail where I was standing. I was in my office in my physiotherapy clinic, and I can see that clinic. And the lady that I'm talking to is standing at the doorway, and I'm kind of leaning on the door, and she's praising me. She's saying how like inspiring I am, and you know, how I've accomplished all these things. And those words came out of my mouth. Even if I was the president of the United States, it still wouldn't be enough.
Wow.
She walks away, and I'm left with myself going, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, what were those? Who said those words, first of all, right?
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of a journey that was needed. And I'm very grateful that I went there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was a very profound moment of realizing I needed to like figure this out.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And even the quote, because the ladies put, as you know, a quote before the story, and you put your own quote, and that was, there is enough. I have enough. I am enough. So I love that. And then the very next sentence, you're talking about being, if you were the president of the United States, you still wouldn't feel like it was enough or that you were enough.
So I had to use that affirmation. Those are power thoughts. I had to use that affirmation. There is enough. I have enough. I am enough. And then I added, I am safe. I repeated that every single day, 3 to 5 times a day for over an entire year before I could believe it, before it could be something that I no longer needed to say. I had it on, I made a poster of it. I had it on my phone. I had it everywhere around me, because that's how much my brain needed to be reprogrammed to believe that that was my truth.
Wow. Wow. And that's the way to do it. I mean, I think we think somewhere between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And my understanding is 80% of those thoughts are repeated thoughts. So if we're in a real negative stint, or our brains are just going with negativity, every day we're thinking we're not enough. People don't like us. If I was the president, it wouldn't even be enough. And so I love that, you know, you did a poster and you put it all over, because I agree. That's how I help myself as well. Affirmations everywhere.
Yeah. And the affirmations have to be very specific. They have to address your core beliefs. And at my core, from all kinds of trauma that happened when I was young, at my core, I didn't believe that I was enough. I didn't believe that I needed to be, like, I was a people pleaser. And so everybody else's needs came before my needs, right? So this was at my core. And so in order to address those, your affirmations have to speak to what's actually the real beliefs at your core. And for me, those ones spoke. And I've trained many, many women, and the book has those affirmations in it. And so many people resonate with those affirmations.
Yeah. So the book that you wrote, Fear Unraveled.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's, so do you think the feeling, so do you think that, like, what do you think one of the main causes is then of us not succeeding, or is it because we don't feel enough? Do you think that's one of the main causes?
Oh yeah, definitely. If for me, for my level of success, that I was constantly sabotaging, and I did all the right things, and I worked really hard, and I would even have other people say to me, like, I don't get it. Like my accountant one time was like, I don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
how is it that you're not succeeding in this business and everyone else's accounting I do is succeeding? Like I joke, but it's the truth. I paid to serve people.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And then like in my multi-level marketing company, my upline would always say, like, I don't get it. Like you're doing everything everyone else is doing. Why is it so hard for you? Right. So I would like sabotage it. There was something
Yeah.
about it that just I had to work harder. And that stems from that idea that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't, and that word grace that I added to my
Yeah.
title there, things didn't flow with grace for me.
Mm.
And so that for sure is something that I knew would change though. I knew that
Yeah.
it was a stage or a season of my life, because when I could picture myself older and, at the later stages of my life, I knew in my heart that things would be different, that for some reason I was experiencing it all in my younger years. And I would always say it to my husband, I go, I don't know how to explain it, but honestly, I know it's not going to always be like this. And when I do my astrology and my human design and all those things, it
Yeah.
actually shows up in my stars and in my readings, right? To be the
Beautiful.
truth as well.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
It's
that's one.
complicated. Why we don't succeed, it's complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah. Yeah. But I do believe that if we don't feel we're worth it, right? I think that's part of it for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have another area here in your story that I would like to just ask you a bit about. And it says here that you felt excited because you had a vision of helping others with their health and wellness for as long as you could remember. I felt like the piece that this felt like the missing piece. I can recall sitting around the table and sharing the beginning of that vision with my siblings back in the late 1990s. So what was your vision? What was that vision?
So I was a physiotherapist and I was in what you'd consider a traditional form of medicine, right? And
Right.
helping people traditionally.
Yeah.
But there were so many things about it that didn't make sense to me. And so, now it's very common, but back then it was uncommon to have things like yoga was new. Chiropractic was thought of as alternative, right?
Ah.
Homeopath, naturopath, these were all just starting to come around. But in my mind, I had a whole team of those people working with me. And also this alternative holistic approach of Reiki, intuitive, like medical intuitive, all of this. And so I saw that as a holistic form of health and wellness. But when I had that vision, it was like you kind of had two heads talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Now it's much more accepted and kind of people are seeking it and looking. Even yoga was, something that was kind of still like, ooh, be careful. You might be worshiping some gods, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was back then, that was my vision.
Yeah. Yeah. You also say here that you attempted to bring this dream to
Fruition.
Thank you. Multiple times. Each attempt, you fell short of the vision. Each time I dug deeper into my pocket, each time making and losing friends along the way. So what was the, like, I was curious when I was reading through your story again, what was it that was causing you to not have that success? Because it sounds like you were doing everything you could.
Yeah. And that's that piece that it's like, okay, like I asked myself a gazillion times my whole life, like, why, like for what's going on. And honestly, all I can say is I really just think it was my journey. I believe we learn through duality. I believe that we learn what we like to know that I am worthy, to know that how to create success. I genuinely believe I had to have experiences of the exact opposite. And I believe that that's true to all of us, that when we're here to learn and evolve and grow in a certain way, you're going to have experiences of the exact opposite of that as sort of your that's just the way. It's not even a lesson. We often say lessons. It's not
Yeah.
even really a lesson. It's just the way. It's one of the universal principles of how being a human works.
Yeah.
And so I think I just had to go through all of that so that I could create the opposite. That's what I've come to believe about why it was the way it was.
That makes sense. That makes complete sense. Absolutely. Okay. That just twigged in my head for my own life. So thank you for saying that.
I really do teach about the soul. So although I call myself a health and wellness coach, I am very intrigued by the psyche, the mind.
Yeah.
But I am more intrigued by our soul's journey. And so to answer some of the crappiest things that could possibly happen to a person, to understand how does that happen? Why would a human have to go through something so tragic as that, right?
Yes.
The only answer that I could find that gave me peace of mind, that allowed me to actually want to stay on this planet and continue this human journey, was understanding it from my soul's perspective. That's the only thing that got me through my depression, got me through being able to create what I've created today.
Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because I even myself, just that little bit, I found that helpful. It makes complete sense. And it answers some questions. It answers a few when you're like, oh, well, why was I going through that? And, and then you see where you went. And no, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Also in your, you say here that after you were diagnosed with depression and your third business attempt failed, you checked out for a full year. Just checked out. And one of the things I really, I found where I could really feel you and see you was when you said that every day after the kids went to school, I went to my room, I set up my IKEA recliner and just sat there meditating, journaling, reading self-help books. Sometimes I cried, sometimes I was angry, and sometimes I would just fall asleep. And then when the kids came home, I got myself together so I could be their mom. Like, wow, that's
that's still making me emotional.
Yeah, such a struggle. Like and how many of us are doing that? Like how many of us put on a brave face? I've been in sales for 31 years, and one of the things I tell people is it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. You have a job to do, and when you get to that person's door and you knock on that door, you put a smile on your face. It doesn't matter if you've had a fight with someone or whatever's happened. You put a smile on your face and you go in there and you present yourself the best you can, and then if you want to fall down and cry, you do it when you leave. So it's I just really felt like I could just really see you and feel you, and thought how many other women are doing that.
Yeah. And there's twofold with that one. In your professional life, there's a time and a place to show those vulnerabilities. And I do believe you need to show them. However, in my story, I never showed vulnerability. So nobody knew that the stuff that was going on. So even when I was, I hate saying the word, but when I was raped by my grandfather, nobody knew. Not a single person knew. And I blocked it out until I was in my 30s. And it wasn't until my 30s that I actually spoke it to my mother. Right. So I learned to keep everything inside and not to show anybody what I was going through, and be there for everybody else.
Right.
Now, as a mother, it was even more important, right? I never wanted my kids to know what I went through. I never wanted my kids. We just had a conversation like just a week ago, and my daughter said, like, Mom, you hardly ever talked about things, right? And I'm just starting to share a little bit with them. But my goal was to protect my children and to give them a different life than what I had, right? In hindsight, I still think that's an important thing as a parent to do. but I, in hindsight, I really wish that I had some people I could confide in and share my struggles with better.
Yeah.
I don't recommend anybody do what I did, but I also know there's a time and a place and the right people. Make sure you're doing it with the right people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And I do believe that we need to protect our children from, and we need to share with them, of course, at age appropriate as we go through life. But I do think it's important to protect them when we're depressed and when we're in that dark place, because if they see us that way, it just instills fear in them, so
Definitely.
yeah,
I think they sense things anyways, and I think it comes out in different actions. So I'm sure they weren't, oblivious to it completely, but I don't think that they knew the depth of it. My friends didn't even know, my family didn't even know, right? So I was really good at wearing this, badge of I'm in control of everything, and I can have, I can handle so many things. And I think people really saw me that way.
Yeah.
And I think I really was that way until I wasn't any longer.
Right. What about your husband? Did he pick up on any of this, or?
He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to deal with it. He didn't know what to do. He knew I wasn't the same as the person. He's my high school sweetheart, so we've known each other for a long time, right?
Yeah.
So he always knew that I wasn't the same person, and he did feel that he was losing me, but he didn't know why or any of that. He's the person I confided the most in, for sure. And he's been my rock for so many things. But I remember, this is another very vivid, when I did finally get to the point where a lot of this was unraveled and I was healing from it. We were walking, we take a walk in our neighborhood, and we were walking, and he turned to me and said, "I'm so happy to have my wife back." Yeah. So that's when I knew, okay, this is behind me now. The worst of it's behind me now. I'm starting to come back.
Yeah.
And so even though he didn't know all the details of it, he recognized the differences in me and was, acknowledging when he felt that I was back.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's because I think there's a lot of people out there that have things happen to them, and whether it's shame or guilt or they just, I just lost me here. Put that back in. There we go. Or they're dealing with just or like you say, just like almost numb to it, not even, it's back there in the vault, but unfortunately the vault eventually opens, or fortunately. And it just depends where we are in life. I guess the vault opens when it's ready to be opened.
Yeah. And I had great strategies for keeping it buried, right? Like I was a workaholic. I was like Superwoman. I was go, 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 go. And everyone else thought it was, well, look at her, right? She's like, she can do all of this. And that's why when I had that conversation with that woman, and she was saying that, like, look at you. And I'm like, no, if we really, take that mask off, I'm a hot mess.
As you're talking, it made me think of, you see it going around on social media from time to time, the big iceberg. And on the top, you see the person with the awards and success and maybe money and relationships. But then underneath, you see all the pain, all the struggles, everything they're going through, the fear, not feeling like they're enough. All of that is down there, but we don't, like you say, that part of it stays underwater until it can't anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the next sort of area of your story that I wanted to just touch on was the healing part, because you say here, I had to find a level of acceptance and love for myself, which required me to forgive myself the bad deal I felt I was dealt and those that hurt me. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So forgiveness is a huge piece of, this whole journey of healing
Yeah.
and coming around to actually really just knowing what it means to love yourself. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I had a lot of traumas that I had to forgive the person,
Yeah.
but with that, it always amazes me how we do this, right? So somebody does something to us
Yes.
and it's our fault.
Right.
So I'm abused.
Yeah.
It's my fault. I
Right.
did something wrong. That's how deeply rooted my not feeling deserving, my not feeling good enough
Yes.
was rooted. My feeling of responsibility. I have such a strong sense of I'm responsible. I'm responsible
Mhm.
for fixing it. I'm responsible
Yeah.
for it happening. I'm responsible
Yeah.
for everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to not only forgive the people and the circumstances that I didn't understand until I finally came to the answer that it has to be, for the good. There has to be some kind of, story at a soul level as to
Yeah.
why I would experience these things. And then I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive God, whatever your version of God is.
Yes.
I had to forgive the person. And then I had to forgive myself, right? So I had these three
Yeah.
layers of forgiveness that I had to work through. And the hardest one was forgiving myself because it was so ingrained in me that I did something wrong. I must have
Mhm.
deserved this. I must be being
Mhm.
punished for
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
had so much shame
Yeah.
embedded in me because the
Yeah.
highest degree of fear is shame.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I had so much shame embedded in me
Mm.
that I had to find a way and a place in my heart to forgive myself,
Mhm.
which was to kind of come to understand that shame, where it came from, why it was there, and then realize it had no business being in my heart at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a lady a few days ago, and she's interested in writing in my next book. And she said she went through a very, very, very traumatic experience. And she said, I don't understand that word forgiveness. I can't understand it. So I did my best to try to explain it, but can you maybe give us what your version of that forgiveness is? Because she couldn't see why she would forgive her perpetrator.
Right. So, way early on in my forgiveness journey, the first thing I learned about forgiveness is a sentence that says that I'm forgiving you because it no longer serves me to carry that pain within me. So when I forgive the perpetrator,
Yeah.
it's not that I'm actually saying it's okay what they did. It's never
Right.
okay what they did. So the
Right.
person that did, raped me, the people that bullied me, the person that killed my brother, like none of that is okay. When you say you're
Right.
forgiving, you are not saying it's okay that they did that. What
Right.
you're saying is it's hurting me, and it's the way I'm thinking about it is causing me more pain, and I'm continuing to relive that pain. And so
Right.
that's what I'm letting go of. I'm letting go of my, like, how it's affecting me. So for
Yeah.
example, how did I get, over my grandfather? I had to find the gift in it. And so you're like, how do you find a gift in that? Well, I had to find something that I learned a lesson as, like, what lesson did that teach me? Right. So
Right.
early on, the lesson it taught me was that sometimes they're negative lessons when you're first doing this exercise. Right. But the
Yeah.
first lesson it taught me was that, okay, in spite of, so I always used that word, in spite of that happening,
Yeah.
I didn't do certain things, right? So I could have ended up becoming very promiscuous. I could have ended up,
Yeah.
prostituting myself. Like I
Yeah.
could have ended up doing these things and I didn't. And so for that, I'm grateful. So it's twisting it in a way that you can find something to be grateful about it. And
right.
it's an individual response. Like you have to find your own way, right?
Yes, yes.
Then I took the lesson and the gift as, okay, well, I now learn something about being a mother and some of the ways that I want it to be with my daughter, right? And some of the things that I wanted to be cautious for and look at, right? So I took that as a lesson. So in the early days, that's how I was able to forgive my grandfather. But then later on, later in my journey, when I had to forgive me, I hadn't forgiven me yet.
Okay.
So I had to then forgive myself. Okay, so what did I believe about me as it related to that, right? So I believed that I have to put other people's needs before my own. That's what that taught me, actually. Being that being taken from me actually taught me that other people's needs are more important than mine.
Right. Right.
So later I had to forgive myself for believing that other people's needs are more important than mine. Wow. So I had to then go through all the times when I made poor choices.
Yes.
Because I put someone else's needs before mine.
Right. Right.
And I had to forgive myself for that action, for doing that. Right.
Right.
And so, forgiveness it's so involved, and honestly, it's an ongoing thing. And it's in layers, like an onion, right? You get one layer of it, and then that takes you deeper and deeper and deeper, but you're doing it to not hold those feelings in you, the anger, the disappointment, the hate, the, belief in yourself, like all of it, whether it's against the other person or against yourself, you can't hold that in your energy, because
you have to release it.
Yeah, it does more harm to you than the perpetrator. The perpetrator is long gone. Yeah. Especially if they're narcissistic, right? They don't even know what the heck impact they've had on your life.
Right.
And so holding that is for you, not for them. It's never for them. It's always for you.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you, Leanne, because I think that was that was a wonderful explanation. And if anybody asks me, again, I'm just going to say, well, here's this video. Go over there and watch it. Leanne's got a great explanation for it. But no, it makes sense. And I think too, it's for a lot of people in my family, it's giving up the hope that they could have had a different path. Forgiving it, it's done. You can't change tomorrow. We can't change 5 minutes ago. So so I think that for me, that was important. Just letting go of that.
But I found that really hard to let go of until I learned this idea of the gift. And if you can't find a gift, find a lesson, and the lesson becomes the gift, right? Right. So for me, until I added that piece of it, like I knew I was supposed to let go of it. I knew I couldn't change it. But until I learned to see it, like, what the heck is the gift in it? Yeah. And gifts are often lessons, most times lessons that become gifts. That for me, I think probably was the most successful way that I could finally have some elements of forgiveness in my life.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Leanne. You explained it extremely well, and I appreciate that. I forgot when I was introducing you something very, very important that's going on in your life. You have recently started a talk show on TV.
Yeah.
So do you
on like online TV? Yeah. Oh, so it's called Fear Unraveled with Leanne, same name as my book. I have 16 episodes. I'm on this week. At the time of this recording, I'd be on episode 11. And so I have there'll be a total of 16 episodes. So that's fun.
So 16 episodes per season for you. Is that how that works?
Well, I haven't decided if I'm going to do any more after 16.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I saw something on the internet, on social media, that it's being shown now in several other places.
Yeah. So the company that I'm working with is Bold and Brave TV network.
Right.
But then they submit it to all the different podcast channels, I guess they're called.
Yeah.
And so it will be on, it's on like Shopify, Spotify, sorry, not Shopify,
Yeah.
Spotify,
Yeah.
iHeart, Spreaker, and then a whole bunch that I have never heard of.
Yeah. So what we'll do though, when people, or when we're done, is in the comments, I will put the links to your show, and of course to your program and your books and everything that you've got. So if somebody wants to find Leanne, just go down into the comment section and you'll see lots of information there that you can go ahead and reach Leanne at. So Leanne, you're welcome. So is there anything you want to say to the world before we're done?
Well, just one more comment about the talk show. The talk show is just like this, I interview other people who have something to share about self-love, about, learning what about your subconscious mind and all the different ways to heal. Yeah. So that's really exciting. And we talked about your books on one of our episodes as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not so much me talking on the talk show. I have 3 episodes where it's just me, but the other episodes are me interviewing. We did human design. I'm going to be having an NLP practitioner on there, I think soon. So a few different topics that are
interesting,
part of the healing process.
Yeah.
Do I have anything? What would I say to the world? Just, I think we just have to remember that the whole process of life is in fact that a process, right?
Yeah.
And that if we're in times of struggle, times of hardship, times of just feeling really crappy,
yeah,
we do truly have to remember that it will pass.
Yes.
But while you're in it, be sure to find a way to talk about it, share it with somebody. And we have so many great groups now and ways to connect with people, because it may not be people in your circle. The people in your circle might be the people who are causing you the pain, right?
Right.
And so just know that you're never alone, and that there's always someone you can reach out to, and there's always someone who can understand and relate on some level. But a lot of times it's just speaking it, right? And that's with the books that you help people, just speaking it. So I wrote my story long before I wrote in your book, but I never shared it with anybody.
Yes.
But I wrote it. And so I was constantly speaking my story for myself in my journals. And so I did my obituary. I did, as though I was an 80-year-old being interviewed by my great grandchildren. What would I say to them?
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
And this is all stuff I just did in my journal.
Yeah.
And then when I wrote Fear Unraveled, most people don't know this. Fear Unraveled was double the size. It's a very small coaching guide.
Yes.
It was double the size because I wrote my story. It was about 10,000 words. So I think that's probably like 100 pages or something, right?
Yeah.
I wrote my whole story in that, and then my editor removed it all.
Oh.
So then I still hadn't shared my story with anybody. Right. And then when your book came up, that was when I was starting to share it with my clients and people who, I'm going to speak about that in a second. So I was trying to share it with some people, but not openly to the way I did in the book.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is you have a great opportunity with our community here to do this, but you don't have to do it for everybody else to read.
Right.
Right. If you're not ready to share it in that way, just write it for yourself.
Exactly.
Just write it for yourself.
Yes.
And then when you do decide to share it, remember that not everybody deserves to hear your story.
Mm-hmm.
That you get to pick and choose who gets to hear your story when you start to share it as part of that healing journey.
Yes.
And then if you ever decide to do it in the book, well, then yes, more people are going to hear it, but I trust that the right people are going to hear it, that need to hear it.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you so much for that, Leanne. That makes complete sense. So I appreciate you telling everyone that, because it's true. I tell a lot of ladies, once you have to be okay, because this is going to go out into the world. And we've sold, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but we've sold a book in Australia. The last book we sold in Mexico. We're in the US and all over Canada. So we don't know who's going to pick up this book and read it. And so if you're, it's a good way to go, all right, this is how I'm going to put it out there. I'm just done with it. But you got to be ready to do that.
You have to be ready to do that. And if you're not ready, then just start writing for yourself.
I love that. Just start journaling.
Start writing for yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Leanne. So remember, everybody, she is in volume 4 of Women Like Me, Breaking Through the Silence. She's chapter 11. So now that you've listened to Leanne talk, you can kind of understand, if you understand numbers, why she's ended up in chapter 11. It just happened, though. But I appreciate you coming and sharing all of your wisdom, because you are very wise, and all of your knowledge with everybody that's watching. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.